Okay, we are live.
Hi, thank you everyone for joining us this evening. Welcome to our Human Rights Commission meeting at 7 o'clock Wednesday, May 5th, 2021. Appreciate you for joining us. I'll jump into our opening here. The city of East Lansing occupies the ancestral, traditional and contemporary lands of the Anishinaabe, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi people's land, ceded in 1819, the Treaty of Saginaw. And with that being said, we'll go right into roll call, please.
Pat Cannon.
Here in the city of East Lansing, County of Ingham.
Chuck Grigsby.
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County, present.
Karen Honey.
Present, attending virtually from Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Carla McWhirter. Oops, you're muted, Carla. I see Carla. I do not. Still
Nope.
can't hear you.
You are not muted, but your microphone is not working.
Usually if you leave and come back, that solves the problem. I don't know why, but you could try it.
Okay, see you. Liz Miller.
Present, East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Crystal Davis Dunn. Not yet. Catherine Riffiota Slavinsky.
Present from East Lansing, Clinton County.
Thassan Sardar.
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County.
Quentin Tyler.
Present from Lexington, Kentucky.
Thank you.
All right, we have quorum. We got everyone in there. Okay, good. We'll move on to item 1.2, and I look for approval of the agenda of May 5th, 2021. Moved by Commissioner Catherine and seconded by Commissioner Tyler. Are there any edits or amendments or discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? So moved. We'll move on to also approval of the minutes of April 6, 2021. I'll look for a motion for that as well.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon and is seconded by Commissioner Catherine. Is there any edits or changes or discussion with those minutes? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Seeing none, so moved. All right, we'll go down to item 2.1. Councilmember Bacon, comments?
Yeah, not too much right now. We are in budget season and in a commitment to, having the budget reflect what we're kind of about as a city, being a non-racist, anti-racist city. Racism is a health crisis and things along that lines. We're always looking for input on budget priorities and things like that. So if you have interest or things that you're seeing in the budget process or areas that should be prioritized, the door is open. Email, talk to me, give me a call, things that you're hearing or seeing. If you're following the process at all, it's a good time to interject. And then in the block grant dollars, we've had some discussions. I was talking with Councilperson Watson around a distribution of the block grant dollars in the ways we used to do things in the past. And those dollars starting to increase a little bit again and come back online, having future much more involvement with the Human Rights Commission on those dollars and how they're going to be distributed, and perhaps way before we get to this part of the budget process, getting input, having you guys talk to different organizations and bring different organizations into the fold around those dollars. That'll be something that I'll be bringing back to you at some point once we've kind of fleshed it out. But I think I'd like to see a little bit more variability and diversity in the groups that are coming forward for those dollars. I don't think that information was dispersed quite as well this time for who was coming forward to ask for dollars. And I remember the old process, it was very wide and swatch of organizations that used to look for even small dollar increments in the past. So I'd like to see that type of stuff return. So we'll talk more about it in the future. I just want to put it on your radar. And then obviously, I think Commissioner Grisby will probably be speaking to things around the Police Oversight Study Commission and things moving forward there. They've done an excellent job. They're coming into the home stretch and they built out a really good plan for the city that we'll be moving forward with very soon.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon, for the comments. Anyone have any questions or follow-up? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to staff reports from Elaine Hardy and Shelley Neumann. Elaine, we can't hear you. You're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Okay, I think this happened last month. Elaine, if you can figure it out, pipe back in when you can, or text me if you have anything you'd like me to add. I have one comment for the group. First off, I see Crystal Davis Dunn. I guess she's joined us. I will note the time as being 7:06. And Crystal Davis Dunn, where are you attending from this evening? Can you hear us, Crystal?
Yes, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Oh, did you? I was giving acknowledgement that I was present from Ingham County, East Lansing, Michigan.
Thank you. Okay, so the one item that I'd like to share with you is that Carla Forrest Hewitt, who is our market manager at our East Lansing Farmers Market, reached out to me recently, and she indicated that she is starting a farmers market advisory committee. And much along the lines of what Councilmember Bacon was talking about, in the fact that the city is working on becoming an anti-racist organization, she is starting this advisory committee, which will be comprised of 7 people, 3 full-time market vendors, the market manager, and 3 community members. And the kind of goal of this advisory committee will be to look at the farmers market through an equity and inclusion lens to increase the diversity within our vendors. So if that's something that you're interested in serving on, there is an application that's just being developed right now. And if somebody from the community is interested, you're welcome to apply as well. It will be posted to our website soon. And if you would like more information, you are welcome to reach out to Carla Forrest Hewitt. And her email is K, as in Carla, HEWITT @cityofeastlansing.com. So she sounds very excited about this. I think it's a great idea, and I hope we get lots of interest in this. So that's all I have to share right now, Chuck.
Thank you so much. And then I saw, did Elaine get her mic going, or is she just going to text you? Just want to make sure she had something to offer the group.
Working.
It's working now.
It is. Well, perfect. Just kind of a small report. Councilmember Bacon and I, as well as Commissioner Canhoney, have been kind of making the rounds through neighborhood associations in the community, talking about the Robert L. Greene project. We did post the application to the state in order to make an application for a state historic marker at the resident and on park land across the street from the resident on Bessemer Avenue. And as promised, and I have spoken with this group about any kind of outreach that I would make to the community regarding DEI efforts. And I just wanted to report that I had a very interesting and productive meeting with Dr. Jabbar Bennett, the Vice President and new DEI person over at MSU. And there's going to be more to come from that conversation that I'm hoping to be able to report out to you. And I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Quentin Tyler to congratulate him on another new role at MSU. He is it okay that I tell people? He is, in addition to the 30 other things that he's doing as Associate Dean and the leader of the DEI efforts for the College of Ag, he is now the Director of MSU Extension. And so way to go. So, that's all.
Thank you, Mrs. Hart, and congratulations, Commissioner Tyler, on your new role. And you're right, you're one busy person. You got a lot of roles there, so we appreciate your time and your community efforts and all the things you're doing professionally and outside of that as well. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 3.1. Justin, do we have anyone on the line by chance? I'm sorry, just one quick moment. I think Commissioner Davis Dunn wanted to comment.
Yes, I'm sorry. I kind of popped in at the end of Mrs. Neumann announcement regarding the DEI, the fire, and this is what farmers market?
The
Is
East
it Ingham
Lansing.
County system?
No, East Lansing's Farmers Market.
East Lansing's farmers market, and then it was saying about DEI within vendors. And I didn't get the person's contact information. I don't know if it's going to be shared in the minutes or whatever. But I wanted to ask if there was any thought or initiatives around looking at outreach and diversity recruitment within consumers. Within my role as a community health worker, we encourage our clients to use their EBT benefits and stuff at farmers market because they can do that double the bucks or points. And then the WIC program often offers coupon booklets for the farmers market and things of that sort. And the problem is that we have families that sign up for them, but trying to get them to utilize them has been the challenge. And furthermore, I know there was a push with more to get more minorities interested in agriculture. And I don't know if there's much vendors or people out there that are of color or other ethnicities or disabilities or orientations, whatever types of diversity you guys are recruiting for. But I know, and I don't know if Elaine can speak to this, that her daughter, Jasmine, was a part of some type of urban farming coalition or something of that sort. But I'm curious how maybe all those groups can maybe collaborate and partner together. So I'd definitely be interested in following up.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis Dunn. Did anyone else have anything pertaining to the agenda so far that we've discussed before we move on? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to item 3.1. Just, do we have anyone on the line by chance?
Yes, we do have one call.
All right, so pursuant to MCL 15263 subsection 1, limiting public comment to 5 minutes, is there a motion for limiting public comment to 5 minutes today?
So moved by Pat Kenneth.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon. Is there a second?
Second, Liz Miller.
Seconded by, thank you. Seconded by Vice Chair Miller. Any discussion on the motion on the floor? All those in favor, please say aye for the 5-minute rule.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? So moved. All right, Justin, whenever you're ready, please.
Yep, we have a caller, Farhan. You may unmute and address the commission.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I just had a quick question for Councilmember Bacon. As far as the budget goes, are you guys working on defunding the police and reallocating some of that money back into the community, especially the African-American community? How's that looking like?
Thank you, Farhan. Is that your only question that you had presented tonight for Councilmember Bacon, or did you have anything else for your call this evening?
That was all. I just wanted to know, as far as the city budget goes, how they're planning on, investing back into the community and what they're planning on doing as far as the police budget goes. So that was all.
Thank you. And thank you for your call this evening.
Thank you.
Good question on police budget and police contracting. We're coming into the negotiating period on police contracting and budgeting and all that thing. We're not through that process as of yet. I can't say specifically what's been moved from the police budget or what's been moved from which budget to do what, because none of that's taken place yet at this point. There's a lot of ideas on the table of things to improve and make things better in the community broadly, and for African Americans in the community. It's more in totality of what we're trying to do with the entire budget, not just policing, not just everything, just in totality. The police budget, as far as moving the needle on the needs of African American community or any other community, would be a drop in the bucket. We're looking to look at all budgets, and from Parks and Rec to everything, and try to be more fair, more equitable across the board. So to answer your question, I'd say some of our reallocations we've already done around social workers and around some of the other work. We're in an effort to move the needle in that area, but we'll continue to work in that area and continue to adapt and to modernize our policing that suits and serves our community best. So that's going to be a long process. We didn't get here overnight, and we're working through it.
Thank you, Councilmember Bacon, and thank you for the caller participation this evening. Did you want to respond as well, Commissioner Davis-Dunn?
I have a particular response to Farhan's question, but I don't know if I spoke about the budget prior to. I've been a little inactive. And I know that Vice Chair Miller had sent in a statement regarding to kind of put our money where our mouth is. And so I just want to just ask that once you guys start reviewing the budget, that you guys are making sure when there are funds that can be diverted, that they are being diverted to what we're calling DEI work, health equity work.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis-Dunn. Yes, please go ahead, Councilmember Bacon.
Yeah, and particularly through this commission and through Elaine's team and department, we're always looking for direction on this. And particularly, this is a passion of mine and the whole council, but specifically, I get a lot of my lead from Councilperson Watson, and I'm open to getting leads from you. When we're looking for broad-based things to support and things that have been vetted, this is a great commission to vet those processes. And I've thought of that. It's a little late in the process, but I like to see going forward where the Human Rights Commission is vetting and bringing those things forward for budgetary considerations. So when we come into budget season, we're not scrambling and looking around for people to support and do those things. We have a whole template of organizations and things that fit the criteria for dollars and all those things. That needs to be that's a year-long expression of our budget. And I think that will be, we'll do our best to address that in this budgetary process, but that can be something the day that the budget settled, that we start working on the next budget and making sure we're addressing those and finding the right organizations in the right places to meet these needs. And I kind of what Shelley was talking about, that this is the starting point for a farmer's market, that kind of thing. That's a great initiative. That kind of has to happen in every area across the board. So, I mean, I'm like I said, we're open to listening, and I know some of you are really plugged in to many of the organizations that do these works. So, Colin, I hope Crystal has no trouble reaching out to me. So, anyone on here, feel free to reach out. So,
thank you, Councilmember Bacon and Commissioner Davis-Dunn. Is there any more discussion on the caller information? All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Do we have any more calls on the line, Justin, by chance?
No.
All right, thank you so much. We'll move on to item 3.3, written correspondence. We have two items listed that was sent from Commissioner Cannon in regards to reparations. Did you want to speak to that written communication by chance, Commissioner Cannon?
Yeah, briefly. For a long time, I have not run across any news articles on the subject of reparation. And to me, it seems like suddenly over the last few months, there have been many articles on that subject, and including a couple of recent books on that subject. And I've reported to you on 2 of the books that I've read on the subject of reparation. And these articles are the most recent ones I have seen. And actually, I just ran across another one over the weekend, but I have not yet sent it. It's similar in its tone. Interesting that reparation is something that I think is on the mind of a lot of us, but for whatever reason, it has not been brought forward by most commissions, councils, or whatever. And I'm not sure why that is. I imagine we could have a discussion on that. But this may be the time again to plant the seed that I hope the subject of reparation is a subject of one of our coffees and conversation events. And it may be that if that generates enough interest, we may have a separate event to open up that subject for broader input and discussion as well. But for now, that's all I had to comment on those articles, and urge you, if you haven't already, to read them and digest them. And I would appreciate personally any feedback you might have on those articles and the subject in general.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. I think 2 commissioners want to respond immediately, Commissioner Honey and then Commissioner Davis-Dunn.
Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Cannon for keeping this on our radar. And I really do. I did read both of those articles, and
thank you.
I find them fascinating and frustrating. I think that the first article that talks specifically about Evanston is just really interesting, and it just shows the challenges of taking action and moving forward, and all the different perspectives and all the different opinions. And so I'm encouraged to see some cities and municipalities actually taking this on with actionable stuff, and also just see the challenges of that. And then as to the second article that talked about trying to move it forward legislatively, just thinking the frustration that I'm sure everybody on this commission would share of the lack of understanding from many of our elected officials, and I'll be political on the Republican side, that just can't seem to see why something that they think ended 160 years, whatever, like just this lack of acknowledgement and awareness of why this is still important. And it's just incredibly frustrating. And I'm really glad that I guess that article that you said it's finally been voted out of committee despite Republican objections. So I guess that's a sign of progress, but still so frustrating that we can't see the importance of that. These are our elected officials. They're supposed to be our leaders. So those are my initial thoughts on the articles, and I just appreciate you keeping this on our radar.
Thank you. Karen, that your last comment reminded me of, I saw Mitch McConnell making a comment that he said, if there are any wrongs done to the African-American community, that was 150 years ago, and surely none of us in this chamber had anything to do with that. So he doesn't quite understand why the big deal now to talk about reparation. And I'm sure there's lots of others who have made similar comments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Commissioner Davis-Dunn.
I just wanted to kind of echo what Commissioner Honey shared about some of the frustrating and the rhetoric around the article. But what I felt was interesting with around the house credit and tax breaks and things of that sort that was discussed in the other article was at the Evanston. In my opinion, are ways that maybe we can consider about, providing incentives or reparations to, members that are seeking to purchase housing here. The capital area housing, they have that HOPE funds that were, distributed through the block grant. And I think I spoke a little bit on how even going through that process is very disparaging. And it almost feels like they're trying to rule people out versus rule people in. And it would be nice to have funds like block grants and things specifically targeting minority individuals. I think I spoke in the last meeting about myself being in one of the homes in East Lansing that was built by those funds from the capital area housing. And, you know, at the time, it was, I think, Mayor Meadows was the mayor, and he showed up to my that opening house, and he's like, "Yay, affordable housing!" And I somewhat took offense to that because it wasn't very affordable. And to, I think I spoke to you guys too about the poverty exemption taxes and stuff that the property taxes keep going up, but looking at ways to provide some similar incentives or programs more targeting minority families or people of, you know, enslaved African descent to make housing actually affordable here. And, you know, so that was just my thoughts. I thought they had some good ideas with, you know, the fund, you know, offering like, I think it was what, 400,000 and some type of like house funding or grants for individuals looking to purchase homes or I kind of breezed through the article, but I'm only saying that, hinting at Councilman Bacon that maybe these articles or ideas might be something you guys can revisit to see how can, you know, divert funds and allocate funds that will support Black communities and minority communities.
I appreciate those comments. I have a question for Councilmember Bacon. As the council's liaison to the HRC, do you regularly or periodically report to Mayor Stevens or the council on what goes on here?
Sure, we sure do. You guys come up a lot. I mean, HRC is kind of beloved by everybody because Aaron came through here. We've all come through HRC. We have a really special place for everyone who's on council right now, particularly. So yeah, you're everything that you guys are doing. It's always really good work. Comes up, and I'm always considering just new things that can come through human rights and that kind of thing, particularly as police oversight gets up and running. What new focuses and what things can you guys take on? I'm brainstorming in my mind all the time, and I know Chuck would have ideas, and Crystal and all your other leadership, and Liz and all you guys in general. I think that's our next big thing, just finding the big things. I think this housing thing is the next big thing. Doing the Dr. Robert L. Greene project. When you hear the 150 years and all those kinds of things, and you see 1962, 1968 into the 70s. I'm born in 74. So, I mean, and we're all aware that the damage was done in most of our lifetime. Some of you are maybe still too young, but those numbers and that math is ridiculous. So it's a really wonderful part of sharing that history, because it continues to illuminate and reiterate that this isn't ancient history that we're talking about here. This just happened. So to those points, and kind of to Crystal's point, I think you're kind of onto something in the housing piece, and finding small areas of repair. And I think the real challenges with reparations is it causes someone to have to admit there's been irreparable damage. So that's a really hard admission to admit. So it's tough, but there can be incremental things, and I think you're on the right track with capture and what we can do on the small scale, even as a local community, to repair some of that irreparable stuff. I don't know. It's hard to fix stuff that was in the 60s that's still impacting us today. So we know it's the number one, per even Elaine's statement yesterday, that's one of the number one causes of the wealth and equity gap at this point now, was housing, obviously, and she repeats it a lot, and it strikes a note every time she presents the data in the community conversation. So we're dealing with that today, and so here we are.
Well, I appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. As I think about this and talk about it here once in a while, I have not had any sense of what kind of feedback we would get from the city council, but what you just told me gives me encouragement and hope, and And Mr. Chair, at some point, we probably need to be talking about those sessions of coffee and conversation and identifying topics and presenters and going forward with that. So.
Thank you, Councilman Bacon and Commissioner Cannon. Absolutely. We do. I just, I think just hearing a little bit of what Councilman Bacon has said and some of the other commissioners in regards to kind of really what the HRC is doing and some ideas and bringing some things up with the budget. I think it's a great excuse for us to really do a lot of collaborations with other commissions, such as the Parks and Recs, the Housing Commission, specifically about the conversation we're having right now, and really just got to get a handle on their agenda, their focuses of what they want to get done as well, so we can be a little bit more effective twofold bodies in some of these different things and work together along with each other in a way that we get the solutions and the results. So that comes to mind when I hear the discussion this evening in regards to that. Is there any other more discussion in regards to the written correspondence this evening? Yes, Commissioner Davis Dunn.
Is there an opportunity that we can maybe invite people or figure out a way we can have a collaborative meeting with the Housing Commission? Because I mean, this was brought up, and then this was the block grants, the CBD or whatever. It's not CBD. Block grant thing was brought up, and it would just be nice to have more conversation and understand what they do and how we can better collaborate, and their understanding and take on some of the issues around housing and their influence around these things, because I was just thinking of another issue too that I feel like interfere or inhibits home buying for people of color, which is the personal insurance, the personal mortgage insurance, or whatever, the PMI. Am I saying that right?
Yep.
Which if your income, your credit score is below a certain number of your debt to ratio is above 40, that they put this extra tax on your mortgage until you get 20% equity. And sometimes it lingers on there if you don't call and say, or check to make sure your equity is in there, or even do a reappraisal of your home if your home has grown, and how that sometimes are those predatory lending. But I just feel like I don't know if this is something we're all concerned about and it impacts the community, but I wonder if this is a more in-depth conversation we can have with the Housing Commission and maybe other potential boards or commissions that are involved, and delegate that over to them and figure out how we can support them in those initiatives, as well as the work that Councilman Bacon is doing.
I think when we do the outreach to promote our coffee and conversation events, we can make sure that the Housing Commission receives those announcements, or we could reach out specifically and invite them to join us in those discussions with coffee and conversation. So, good idea, Crystal. Thank you.
Commissioner Bacon, please go ahead.
I think what has to happen, and Elaine's very good at this as well, and I'm sure many of you would be at this, we have to define affordable housing so we can even have the conversation. The issues around, if you ask that question in a room, you'll get 10 different answers.
Of course. So
from our perspective, what does that mean for East Lansing as a community? It's a really serious, that we define what affordable housing, entry-level house. We're in the housing study right now. We can kind of, it's like knowing the end of the movie. We know where this is all headed as far as this housing study goes. So how do we find entry into here? What's affordable housing look like? What does affordable housing that isn't bad housing look like? And how do we get more entry points into our housing market and that kind of thing? And make sure we're even speaking the same language, because I think if you asked it just generally, many people would have a different response to what even affordable housing means, and the stigma that's on it. So we got to figure that out.
Affordability is one of those words that definitely falls in that category of where you stand depends on where you sit, and it could be interpreted lots of different ways. Well,
So I'd be
Thank you.
interested in you guys working with the Housing Commission to define that for our community, what really affordable housing means, because I feel like people get a visceral reaction to it. We need to redefine it. So.
Good. Thank you,
Yes,
Ron, very much.
Yeah, thank you. And I did misspeak. I called Councilmember Bacon, Commissioner Bacon. I apologize. It just rolled off the tongue there. So I apologize for that. Commissioner Honey, please go ahead.
I just wanted to add one more thing to Councilmember Bacon's list that often gets left out when you talk about housing, and it's also keeping people in housing. So in my experience in the last 20 years, a huge challenge I see with a lot of families I work with is moving into affordable housing and being evicted for many, many times reasons way beyond their control, like not being able to have their garbage removed or like things like that. And so I just encourage that when we do have these conversations about housing, we don't not only talk about how to get into affordable housing, but how to stay in affordable housing. And so that just often, in my experience, gets left out of the conversation. And it's just an important thing to consider as well.
Absolutely, Commissioner Honey, and thank you. That's a great way to add to that discussion there on there. Is there any other discussion on the written communication in regards to the housing reparations and some of the different things we've discussed before we move on? Yes, Commissioner Davis-Dunn.
Is it a motion to, I know Commissioner Kenneth talked about inviting them to the coffee hours, but when is it appropriate to make a motion to invite maybe a chair or somebody from the commission here or in another space?
No.
If I understand you correctly, you're asking, there should be a motion for us to invite someone to speak from the Housing Commission?
Yes.
You can do any motion that you'd like to bring forward. I don't know if we necessarily need to vote on that type of thing. I think Shelley and our relationships with the commissions, we can, invite them based on kind of where we're at and what we want to do. But you're certainly more than welcome to bring anything forward that you like for a motion.
Okay, because I was wondering if we could have the conversation or where it would be appropriate in the public meeting or not to have the conversation around reparations, affordable housing, and other initiatives with them, and then to just shape what potentially the coffee hour might look like around some of the content matter we might discuss.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Thank you. I'll chime in here. Absolutely. I can definitely work with our housing administrator, who is the liaison to the Housing Commission. We can start an ongoing conversation about how we can best accomplish some of these things that I hear you talking about. I took some notes, but I think that's an important first step, even just communicating in a small combined group to see who has interest from their commission, and we'll move forward from there. But I'll definitely facilitate that conversation starting this week.
Thank you. Mr. Chair?
Yes, please go ahead, Commissioner Cannon.
In the interest of full disclosure, some of you know that I have a excellent relationship with one of the Housing Commission members, my wife, Janelle Cannon. And she, probably more than anyone else in our household, is responsible for tweaking my interest and sensitivity to the reparation issue. And I will let her know what we talked about tonight as well. So thank you, Shelley, and thank you, Crystal.
Thank you. I think Councilmember Bacon, did you want to weigh in?
Yeah, just kind of maybe a little guidance. I think the broader reparations question would probably be best served in how you guys do your subcommittee work. I think that's a good question, and then bringing someone from the Housing Commission over to speak to you. And then if you glean anything from that, maybe forming a small subcommittee and coming with some ideas around that, making them two separate things. I think if they get muddled together, you're going to get bogged down. But I think obviously the housing portion is a subsection of what Commissioner Dunn was speaking of, but I think you want to separate those out in two separate conversations.
Mr. Chairman, one final comment, please.
Please go ahead.
You've heard me mention one of the books that I read is called 40 Acres and a Mule, or I think it was 40 Acres and Maybe a Mule. And I just recently learned that when that resolution is introduced in Congress to promote reparation, it is always given the number HR 40 to make that linkage to the 40-acre question. But I just thought that was interesting. And with that, I'm going to be quiet now for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think we're going to go ahead and move on unless someone who has not got a chance to participate wanted to speak, but I think we should go ahead and move on in relation to our guest speakers we have this evening. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on. We're going to have to item 4.1, a special presentation from Ellie, Bennett, and Devin Woodruff in regards to the Crown Act. And are they on the line? Are they here to speak? Okay, good. We see one of the two of the duo, and there is the second. Before you, I don't want to tell you how you're doing your presentation, but could you give us a little backdrop of your organization and kind of what you're doing and what you're charged with, so we can, some of us, especially some of us in the community, can wrap our heads around what you're doing out here in the community?
Yeah, of course I can go. Hi, everyone. I'm Ellie Bennett. I'm a current, well, now I'm actually a junior, which feels weird to say, at Michigan State. And I am the community liaison for ASMSU, which is the student government at Michigan State. So we're a body that represents all students. We have elected representatives, and they're from every single college, different corps and cops groups. And yeah, so we have this presentation. We passed legislation to advocate for things, and we're really excited to bring this to you. And I have Devin with me. He's going to be doing most of the presentation. I am just here to basically share my screen and just be a support system for him. But Devin, if you want to introduce yourself, you can.
Yeah, Ellie said a lot of it. My name is Devin Woodruff. I'm now a sophomore, but I started MSU as a true freshman, and I am a representative in ASMSU for the Social Science College. So,
thank you, and thank you for joining us tonight. And we're excited to see what you have to say. And I think it's an important piece of work there. So please go ahead. I think you have an opportunity to bring your screens up.
Yes, I think so. Let me, can you all see it?
We can.
Okay, perfect. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we're here today to kind of talk about the Crown Act. If you don't know, the Crown Act, it stands for creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. And, this was kind of created in 2019 to really add, protections against discrimination based upon, hairstyles, textures, and whatnot, to really provide that protection in workplaces and in schools. And what we know is that, especially, criticism on, hair is disproportionately, it does affect people of color, and specifically Black women and Black men. A survey that was done by Dove found that at least over 80%, or I believe, or 90% of the people, indicated that that their boss had told them, that the hair that they were wearing was very unprofessional, and that was very high numbers from specifically Black women. So, even as you can see on the bottom, these are just, natural hair that, some people are wearing, or even, protective, hairstyles that people are wearing. So it's really important that, we try to embrace, the differences that we're really coming from. So really the Crown Act is really, seeking to add, that protection against discrimination based upon, on the hair types, and making sure that we provide that equal playing field. So next slide. So yeah, an ASMSU bill, actually at March 18th, 2021, our last session, which was the 58th session, our assembly passed a bill, which was introduced by me in the College of Social Science, and it was seconded by Julian Trevino in the College of Social Science. And this advocated for passing the Crown Act on the state level, which, this bill passed unanimously. And the bill, it really talked just a lot about how different states have passed the Crown Act, like California, New York, Virginia, Washington, and other states are working on a form of kind of the Crown Act or working on kind of their own anti-hair discrimination bill. But once again, the bill referenced even just, kind of examples of an 11-year-old, named Faith. She was told that she couldn't attend school over the summer because the school had implemented a policy based upon, braided hair extensions, so things like this that's really barring people of color from really entry to the school system is really, a problem. And, especially too with me being at MSU, it was a concern that I heard a lot that, students felt, concerns of trying to get an educational opportunity, that they felt that they were being harshly kind of criticized on their looks and more towards, people of color really felt that. So I felt it in me to really make sure ASMSU was advocating for this. And then after that bill passed, we met with State Representative Sarah Anthony, who introduced the Crown Act again on February 19, 2021. And really in kind of this meeting, she really talked about the importance of making sure to reach out to local governments in regards to looking at their discrimination policy, because at the state level, sometimes these things can take a minute and a while. So reaching out to the local levels in which, those are the people that are going to, implement the policies and are going to be the people, that are going to kind of implement those. So it's good to kind of reach out to the local municipalities, which we are right now, to try to see how we can bridge that gap somehow. So next slide. So Ingham County, the Ingham County Board of Commissioners did pass the Crown Act, a form of it, on March 23rd, which became the first county in Michigan to ban hair discrimination. I know that another city, the city of Detroit, Councilwoman Mary Sheffield, she introduced, I believe, a resolution that really talked about making sure that you're equitable in regards to a hairstyle and really providing protection against that, and also advocacy for seeing the Crown Act passed on the state level. And in the Ingham County, as you can see in the resolve clause, it included kind of that definition that we're looking to really include that talks about, the protective hairstyles, but not, the braids, locks, and twists. So really including kind of that language about hairstyles was really important. So amazing to see Ingham County really do that. So next slide. So yeah, and for East Lansing, your discrimination policy right there, which highlights you won't be discriminated based upon religion, race, color, age, height, weight, and whatnot. But we would like to see a change in the code of ordinance. I believe it's chapter 22, and really to include the definition of race, but not limited to hair texture and protective hairstyle. So really what we're hoping to see East Lansing do is really expand kind of its discrimination policy in regards to hairstyle, and really making sure to protect kind of a vulnerable population that we know disproportionately is affecting people of color. So I think it would be really important to kind of see an expansion of the discrimination a portion of the section, and hopefully we'll able to see some movement on that. But next slide. And that's it. I guess, is there any questions for Ellie and I that we can answer?
Yes, Councilmember Bacon, please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Ellie and Devin, because I think I was probably the first person to receive email correspondence, and they're very persistent and really wonderful. And I'm like, oh, I'm into this subject, and as a dad of daughter who wears, I don't know what her hair is going to look like till she comes downstairs, and it's always big. I really appreciate this gesture and understand the psychic value of hair and being able to show up as your authentic self, and all the things that our DE&I department and HR and everyone's working on to make. I think this is a big part of that, just from a psychic and being able to be authentic position. I can't. It seems like a small thing, and from a government perspective, it can be overlooked. But I thank you for your persistence in pushing this forward. So thank you.
All right, before I go ahead, does anyone else want to? Yes, please, Commissioner Catherine, and then I believe Commissioner Honey, and then Commissioner Davis Dunn.
I, as a washed up member of ASMSU, I think this is really cool. I commend the community liaison and the reps. I think this is really awesome. I also grew up in a country in Brazil where many women did crazy things to their hairs to try to conform. So I think that this movement, and especially the support of government institutions for this movement, is crucial for us to change beauty standards. And as Councilmember Bacon said, to really give permission to people to just kind of be their full selves and support that. So I love this bill, and whatever we can do as a commission to support it, 100% behind it. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. Please go ahead.
I second everything that Catherine said, and I just had a clarifying question. So the Ingham County Commissioners vote, does that specifically, that bans hair discrimination in Ingham County employees? Is that correct? No one else beyond Ingham County employees, right? That's who it's limited to right now because the county commissioners passed it. So this is why we want to see it passed locally and then statewide. So that would then include city employees and then state employees. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So it only
we can legislate about private companies or anything, right? This is always going to be limited to public occupations. Is that correct? Or is, if we pass a state ordinance, would that be able to ban private companies from discrimination or not? It's a loaded question.
I'm not sure about like the state level, but the Ingham County ordinance that they passed was applied to the employees of Ingham County. So that's why it wouldn't apply to anyone in East Lansing. So that's why we kind of wanted to work through getting it passed in the city of East Lansing.
No, thank you. We really appreciate you bringing this forward. I'm fully supportive.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis Dunn. Please go ahead.
So I'm on the original committee where this bill was introduced for Ingham County, and so we had voted unanimously for the bill to be passed and go forth through the commission. It was introduced to us personally by our state representative, Anthony. If I understand, it is a House Bill 4275, and so yes, Ingham County, it changes our equal opportunity work plan and some of the parameters in which they consider discrimination or bias. No, there has been letters and stuff that have been sent based off workplace discrimination related to hair that did not currently fall under this very skewed, hard to prove thing of biasness. And so it's very important. One of my reservations for passing this, the resolution, was that we had to make sure that there was training and education around hair and in the meaning of different things, because being that we have 5 generations in a workplace, just older demographics don't understand it, and everyone has this very understanding of what professionalism is. And so I 2 years ago was one of those people that simulated it, and wanted to have a professional look, and was frying my hair trying to get it straight, and it's quite traumatizing. And I know a lot of people don't understand that process of having kinky hair and wanting to be considered a professional. So this bill is very important, and I'm not sure if there is a draft resolution here for East Lansing, but I have a resolution that could be introduced. I can modify it and then send it to the commission for it to then be sent to the council if that is a desire. I missed the half of your presentation. My kid interrupted me.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis Dunn. Did anyone else want to respond before I speak on the presentation?
Yeah, Chuck.
Yeah, yes, Commissioner Tyler, please go ahead.
Yeah, just want to say that I appreciate the work, you know, that of the students. You know, you're setting an example not only currently but future generations. Also, it means a lot. You know, I think even personally, you know, as I continue to even grow my hair out more and more, right? You know, to me, because I want folks to understand the representation is real. So again, I think it's very important to bring your whole identity to work, you know, as we all continue to experience microaggressions, in particular in today's climate. So again, just kudos to you all and to continue to press forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Tyler. Yeah, you know, when I got the email and saw this, you know, I was like, I think Vice Chair Miller and I were like, yep, we need to have them in so we can get understanding of what you guys have to offer and what you're doing. I'm really impressed with, I'll say you young people compared to some of us here on the phone here, but it's very, very important. This is one of those things that really means a lot of other things when you talk about the issues that surround it. And I'm sure the liaisons can tell me better than I can tell them. You know, as Commissioner Davis Dunn was talking about assimilating and doing her thing, I had to make that decision a long time ago myself. I know this may be hard for some of you to believe, but I did have long hair and I was flocky and everything like that. But, you know, it just really came with a lot of issues. I was profiled. I mean, so there's a lot of different things that go into this. And I think this is a very, very important thing that you're bringing forward, important work that you're doing, Mr. Woodruff and Ms. Bennett, in regards to what we have going on. I know, and I will just go on the edge here and say that I know that the HRC really sees this as a benefit to the community, benefit to the issues that we work on and are mandated to fight for. At this level, I know what we can do is we can do a letter of support to your bill, to your resolution, and support that and send that way up. But the real big decision makers and code changers and evaluators is really at that council level. But coming through our commission here and sending that letter of support, and with this presentation, we have a nice package to be able to send that up forward to, if that's something that you think is going to be helpful to your efforts in regards to this bill and getting some energy behind it in a way that drives for change. Did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Davis Dunn?
Yeah, so I missed the last half of your presentation. And I saw that you guys are introducing the House bill. Are you guys looking for a resolution for the city of East Lansing?
Yeah, so we were looking and hoping.
Can you bring your slide back up, Ellie? Just show, I think she was off when you're, the screen that has our current resolution addition of qualifications around hair.
Let me, is it not gonna let me go back? Sorry if you hear my dog barking. He is not happy that I am in a closed door room. Yeah, so we're looking to adapt a change to the current anti-discrimination policy that the city of East Lansing has by modifying, and normally what was done, at least in Ingham County, was defining race. As it currently stands, there's no definition of like race, so it would extend that definition and have a definition in the code that states, you know, traits historically associated with race, including but not limited to hair texture and protected hairstyles. We don't have like a current resolution drafted, but that could be something I could work with Councilman Bacon on getting, you know, resolution drafted. That would probably look pretty similar to the Ingham County like language as well.
Yeah, so that's what I was pretty much saying, because I was a part of that committee that drafted the resolution along with Representative Anthony for Ingham County, and so I have it. So if it's so I'm saying that if it's of support, it's something that we can do. I think for me, just a clarification is that if I take this on of just updating this in East Lansing, the anti-discrimination, I don't know what for Ingham County's ours fell under our equal opportunity work plan. I don't know what plan or piece of legislation this falls under for East Lansing, but if I can get a copy of that, I could adopt the draft resolution we have here for Ingham County and make those amendments with that language. And if that process would then just be for the Human Rights Commission to vote and pass and then send it to council, or would, if I help update this resolution, or if you guys want to do it, I could just give you the Word document if y'all don't have the Word document, and then just send it to council.
Yeah, I think you guys could work together on it and pull the language together, but anything that would come to us, as long as it crosses Elaine's desk as well, to make sure it's matched with the overriding DEI, spirit and initiative. That would kind of be the most important thing. And then, but obviously we're all on the same. I think this is low hanging fruit. So yeah, just as long as the right language is in there, we don't leave any holes. So you guys can put your heads together on the verbiage. And I think this is a good spot for it in the anti-discrimination statute. So it's probably a good place to stick it. I think it'll have the impact that you want right there, because that's our overriding
MSU.
Okay.
Sorry, that my computer speaks to me sometimes. I don't know, Ellie, and I don't see the other guy's name. I just dropped my email in the chat. If you guys want to just email me, I can send over the Word document of the resolution that I have, and then if I can figure out where East Lansing's anti-discrimination policy is to see where that fit, I will. We can work on that.
Yeah,
I have free time. I graduated, so I am officially free from MSU, and so I'm like on to take on tasks. My energy levels are up. I'm feeling good. So just let me know how I can help and how quickly you want to move on it. It's pretty much here. Change some words around. We can get that going.
Yeah, definitely.
Elaine, does that make sense that you have last pass at that, just to make sure it matches? Matchy.
So, Councilman, I'm happy to work with the committee. I'm happy to kind of look at it last. I do think that if we're talking about an ordinance change, that there may be some other entities that may need to take a look at it as well. And so I'm happy to kind of work on the committee and then kind of work on the back end here with the city to see who else needs to put their eyes on it.
Perfect.
Yes, Shelley, please go ahead and chime in.
Sure. So there are two pieces to this, right? It would be a resolution recommending an ordinance change, which is what you're talking about. And then the second piece is the EOC piece. So that's a policy that's developed internally at the city. You were asking about that, Crystal. So that's something actually we're working on right now, is updating our EEO policy. So it's kind of perfect timing. So I will take this forward, this added piece, to see if it's something that we can add to our internal piece that would affect our employees.
Thank you. So just so I'm clear, because I kind of got lost there. So for one piece of that, for tonight's presentation, Commissioner Davis Dunn is going to work with our liaisons and Elaine Hardy through Shelley in regards to bring something for us to look at going forward. Is that kind of what I'm seeing here as far as the process?
I mean, it seems that, and I just want to ask for clarification. If you're, Ms. Neumann, if the EOC plan changes, then does that trickle down into the other departments and divisions in which, it's kind of that the plan oversees? And then far as from Elaine's standpoint with the DEI initiatives, wouldn't it be at that point the implementation or enforcement or upholding the plan, the changes in the EOC plan? Because that's how it happened at the county. And so because the EOC plan are the things I oversee on the committee to make sure that, the county is upholding these things, and that it goes across all department heads. So if we just do the resolution to modify the EOC plan, wouldn't that cover all bases?
It wouldn't change the ordinance though. So the presenters brought forth the ordinance change, the additional language. So they're two separate things.
Okay, so how about, yeah, I dropped my email in the chat, and then if we can collaborate, and then we'll, make sure we find time to communicate between Miss Elaine and Miss Neumann. I'll be willing to support you guys in those draft resolutions. And so, do y'all have access to the chat?
Yeah, I have your email. I wrote it down, and I'll probably email you probably like tomorrow because when I'm in actual work, and I'll email you. And I know the code pretty well, just in my job, so we can work on that together. But thank you guys for letting us present, and I really appreciate everything. So thank you guys.
No, we thank you, and we really appreciate you and your time and your work tonight, and we look forward to seeing the next step of this and how we can get involved in supporting that. So, and then also thank you, commissioners, and Commissioner Davis-Dunn for stepping up and being more involved going forward behind the scenes as well. So thank you so much. Did you have anything else for us tonight? All right, you can stay on the line as long as you like if you choose to, but you're more than welcome to step away if you like as well. And we appreciate you. Take care. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to item 5.1. And we have our HRC complaint that we all hopefully had a chance to review and process. And I just want to open it up to the floor in regards to, or maybe I should allow maybe Shelley to kind of really lay this up for us in our discussion and go from there.
Sure. Thank you, Chuck. Yep, I'd be happy to kind of summarize this to establish some common information. So hopefully you all had a chance to review the complaint. It came in initially on our HRC face sheet electronically on the 10th of April. I reached out to the complainant, scheduled a time to meet with him in person, and we did that the following week. Elaine and I both met with him. In that interim of that week, he supplied us with his written statement, as well as all of the additional documents that you received as part of the package. So that included, specific pictures and accident information. So he brought all of that kind of to the table himself. He arranged to get all of that. So we met with a complainant at City Hall and really heard what he had to say and spent some time with him. And he's very, of course, upset on several issues that he experienced during this auto accident. I think the first kind of thing that we acknowledge that he has an issue with is he was found responsible for the traffic accident at the scene, and he disagrees with that finding. Ultimately, that was dismissed in the court of law, so he has no obligation to that, but it is a frustration, of course, that the officer who responded at the scene, he doesn't believe got the facts right. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is he felt dismissed and unheard by the police officer that responded at the scene, as well as after the incident happened when he called the department several times and asked to speak to her. He didn't get a return phone call. He reached out several times. Finally, somebody else called him back. So based on that, he really believes that it was his race that influenced the interaction between him and the officer and the outcome. So that is really the frustration. He did indicate the officer on the scene was polite, professional, however, dismissive, right? He said that several times. He didn't feel heard. So that is kind of the summation of his complaint. Some additional information that you should know is that this accident affected this individual greatly. His car was destroyed. He was using his car in the course of work, and he didn't have the right insurance on it. He didn't have business insurance on it. He had an individual private plan on it. So his insurance agency denied the claim. So that results in him having a lot of expenses remaining just on the car alone. So as the result of not having a car, he lost his job because he could no longer drive and deliver. He has a new job, but it's not as good of a job. So it's one of those situations where this incident definitely just had such a negative impact on his life that it's incredibly sad and concerning. And that accident happened, prior to any officer involvement. So just kind of keep that all in mind. And tonight, so per our complaint policy, your decision would be, is there any evidence that you can make a decision on that there is discrimination based on a protected class, that the investigation should continue, that we get additional information. So that is kind of the purpose of this meeting tonight. After reviewing the complaint, is there enough information that we can say, you know what, we should look into this further. This should move forward in some direction to see if discrimination existed. With that, I have a caveat. Because this employee, employees work under typically contracts in our work environment, union agreements, right? Collective bargaining agreements. So there are rules and just cause and discipline is all addressed in the union contract that this employee falls under. So keep that in mind. As a commission, our ordinance doesn't work well for anything that involves an employee. Secondly, I've been in contact with Deputy Chief Gonzalez about this complaint from the very beginning. I told him we received the complaint. He was very interested. He was very helpful. And as soon as I told him about our interview with the complainant, he said, I am compelled at this point to open an internal investigation on this. I'm obligated to do that right now. He said, I cannot wait for an HRC decision. That would be too long, right? I want to start one right now. So he immediately did that. So it's an internal investigation. They've started the investigation. He gave me a status update and said that the investigating officer has already interviewed the complainant. He's interviewed the driver of the other vehicle. He's interviewed a witness at the accident. So they're addressing that accident portion right away. And then next week, the investigator will be interviewing the officers that were involved to address why this officer didn't call him back. How did she treat him at the scene to get that kind of information, right? So he will keep us abreast of the information that's gathered and how the investigation goes. That's a process that's moving forward. So in kind of a nutshell, that is the situation that we have before us tonight. And I'd be happy to try to answer any questions or hear your comments.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and let the other commissioners speak first because they may have the same thing I'm thinking. I believe I saw Commissioner Cannon and Commissioner Davis Dunn. Please go ahead.
Shelley, if I understood what you said correctly, once you interviewed the complainant, Chief Gonzalez says that automatically triggered his need to launch an investigation. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Davis Dunn, please go ahead.
So my question here, I just personally experienced something similar, not in East Lansing, but Lansing. And so this is why like the disorderly conduct and other stuff that I was working on was so important to me. But in this case of this police incident, and again, looking at policies, these are things that was of interest within the subcommittee as, you know, when police respond in their interaction, you know, with civilians, and this issue of discretion. And they're not crime scene investigators. It really is the rule of whether or not they're going to ticket someone or find someone at fault, and how they write the incident report does impact, a person's insurance and things of that sort. So I can understand this person, the cumulative trauma that happened based off this bias car incident report. But I am curious about what does the policy says when officers respond to auto accidents. I know there are several things that I've contested with, because it was said that the officer said that anytime the police is called and we respond to an auto incident, we have to write a ticket. And that is behavior of the police, but that is not, from what I understand, the actual law. And so, it would be curious to get some clarification, from within the city limits, because I got that from the state police from when I contested a ticket, if something similar to happen with me, that is not actually a policy. It might be a practice, but that's not a requirement that if a police, responds to an auto accident, that they have to write a ticket. And then the other half of that, usually most reports are biased in the same sense that, is there a copy of the police report that was actually filed, or just is it Sattler's statement? Because I'm curious to actually see what the police report, how it read, because they do identify, who was at fault, like where the position of the car was, the intersection, how that person was crossing. And so he said that he was given a ticket for, is it failure to stop or impediment? And he's describing, the zone, and, that the other driver's statement doesn't add up based off the position of the car. I didn't see his pictures, but I'm just curious about how, again, the decision-making process happens, of how the officers determine who's at fault or not. And what East Lansing policy is, and what will this internal investigation yield. He said the officer was, respectful or whatever, but he still felt that he was biasly treated.
Thank you, Commissioner Davis-Dunn. So, Commissioner Catherine, did you want to weigh in? Please go ahead. You're muted. While we're waiting on her audio, did you raise your hand for a second there, Commissioner Honey? Okay. So while we're trying to figure out Commissioner Catherine, I think she's going to jump back in. Shelley, so when it comes to this internal investigation that they're doing right now, and then us making a decision tonight without that being complete to see if we should go further with following suit with this, I'm just curious on the process of what we've done in the past when it comes to it still being pending. I mean, I know I'm assuming, and I'm just assuming that we make our decision irregardless of that investigation, but with this type of incident and it being what it is, can you give us some guidance on kind of really how that has been handled in the past when it comes to that open investigation, internal one?
A couple of things. So in the past, whenever a citizen complaint came forward regarding the police, and it's been very, very, very rare, I can think of forms being completed 2 times in my career here, and those went to the police department for investigation. That's the way it has always been handled. In this situation, in consideration of everything that we've been working on within the organization and the police, the potential of the Police Oversight Commission, in conversations that we've had, we kind of determined that it would be best, at least as the entry point to this complaint process, that they have a party, since they approached a non-police person, that we would follow through. So we felt it was kind of a safer, more appropriate environment for them to file their complaint with us. And at least I could hear that initial conversation and interview.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Catherine, are you back with us to speak?
Yes. I have a couple of questions just for me to understand like how we're voting. So if what could proceeding with the investigation yield? Could it yield a return, an overturn of the ticket? Because it seems like that would cause a trickle effect for this individual. They mentioned being sued by the other person that was driving. And maybe if the ticket is overturned, the culpability is overturned, therefore that person being sued, the case would not hold. So I'm just trying to figure out, could this investigation yield the overturn of the ticket? Because if not, then I don't know what else we could do.
It's a good question, Catherine. So ultimately, yes. So if the ticket's already been dismissed, so there is no ticket. However, there is the issue of insurance that Commissioner Davis-Dunn talked about. So if during the course of their internal investigation, they found that fault was inaccurately assigned to that accident, they would correct that. And that new amended corrected information would be sent to the person's insurer. So, and we talked about that with the complainant during our interview. He also mentioned the fact that he is not concerned about this person suing him because he says it will not be upheld. From conversations and research he's done, he said that is not going to happen. So he felt okay about that. But I think his greatest concern, even, when we said, well, this is what we can do, right? The police can take a look at it. If they find that you were not at fault, then your insurer can
MCL.
The paperwork can be fixed. The insurer will be notified. Of course, that doesn't ultimately still make things better for him. And that's his frustration, right?
So it's a two-step process. So the dismissal of the ticket doesn't necessarily clear the culpability in the report.
Correct,
that
because it would still exist, right?
So it is only by
Scott.
overturning the culpability in the report that could provide an opportunity for the insurance to pay. That wouldn't even guarantee that. That would just provide an opportunity for the insurance to cover more of the costs.
Well, unfortunately, since his plan was not correct, there would be no impact on the car that he lost.
Right. So, I mean, I understand. I'm sorry, I didn't know if y'all were finished talking. I know that there's a state law about like operating with your vehicle, and if you run into somebody that you're considered at fault because you're supposed to be in control of your vehicle at all time. And so I don't know how that if the at fault was determined because he hit the other vehicle, or if the other vehicle, failed to yield, or what the traffic violations was. With regards to what I was thinking about insurance aspect of it, that if it's considered at fault, then, or just have an accident period, and increases your insurance rate. But it's, for me, I feel like the investigation, and I think that if we move forward on this, the potential benefit of of looking into this is to looking at our internal policies around what is the expectation or policy for officers responding to auto accidents, because again, it is said or been the impression that if an officer is called to a crime of of an incident, that they have to write a ticket. That's what was stated. I don't know if that's true. Is that a policy or a practice for East Lansing Police Department? A, and then B, the discretion of issuing that ticket, if based off from the guy's statement, if you couldn't determine who was at fault or who hit who or whoever that was decided, then I don't know what the policy or process is for reporting the incident report. Not all incident reports have to designate somebody at fault. Essentially, it's something for the auto insurance companies to battle out. And so, I guess if we look at this and he considered that he's being discriminated based off because his color of skin, that he was biasly ticket, and the subsequent fallout of it, either way, with his vehicle being totaled, he's still at fault. That's how Michigan law works. He won't get any money per se, or I guess he could possibly sue the other driver, but is his ask that the officer be reprimanded, or and then it is our reach then to look at whatever they get from the internal investigation at if the officer followed protocol or procedure. And if he followed protocol or procedure and the protocol or procedure is biased, then I feel that is an opportunity for us or the Police Oversight Committee to look at how those policies, procedures, or things are written, so that these don't continue to happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I get a clear picture of that. So did anyone, thank you, Commissioner Davis-Dunn. Did anyone else want to chime in? Because I want to just move on to the next step here with us moving forward with this or not. But we want to make sure that we get everyone's input on what they think about this. And then also my second question is, Shelley, is the process of moving on at this point. Vice Chair Miller, I think you want to chime in real quick.
Yeah, we might be on the same wavelength, Chuck. So just to clarify, our task tonight is, was there discrimination based on race in his interaction with the officer, in the officer's behavior, interaction, and what happened. So that's our task tonight, is to determine if there's enough evidence of that to move forward into an investigation particular to this. And there's sort of two parts. There's both was the handling of the initial accident, and then how he was treated after the fact, with not returning phone calls, and yeah.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Did you want to chime in, Shelley, kind of really just so we are clear to get to a certain point?
So Commissioner Miller is right. So you said it right the second time. If there's enough evidence that you could decide whether the complaint, it says, the procedure says we'll review the complaint and decide whether to hear the complaint or dismiss the complaint for failure to state a violation of the Human Relations Ordinance. Is there potential of a violation of the Human Relations Ordinance? And yeah, so that's what it would be. Secondly, so if we say there is, if this group says there is, really the next step is, the only thing we can do is have the police investigate it, right? Which they're doing.
Human.
And await their outcome and find out their outcome.
East.
Beyond that, there is not much per the ordinance that we can do.
Left.
Gotcha.
And that's because normally there would be like a subcommittee from the HRC that would that would investigate it, but because this is an employee issue that follows under union contracts, it has to come from the department. So yeah, so we can say, so if we vote yes to move forward, it's already in process of what it is. And which also, yeah, so any outcome would be based on their finding, and any discipline would come from them as well.
Correct.
All right, so thank you for that. So before we kind of get to that point, I just want to make sure, it looks like Commissioner Davis Dunn wants to add some more to the discussion, but I want people to start thinking about exactly what was just said about what Vice Chair Miller said in regards to, all right, do we want to hear more? You know, some things are already in play for us to be able to weigh on this in a way that we can not put this to bed now, but keep it going until we get more information. So just go ahead, Vice Chair, or excuse me, Davis Dunn, Commissioner Davis Dunn.
I just wanted to clarify what particular piece would this fall under as a violation of the civil rights ordinance for our commission. You know, I'm trying to figure out what particular piece does that fall under in our ordinance? Is that public accommodation services or duty? I don't know.
Yes.
And then the second of it, if it's enough evidence, if we don't have the police report, we're not able to review the body cam footage. I don't know if there is enough evidence, but I think there is enough evidence for us to vote to hear from the complainant more about his experience. And I think the other half of that whether we're waiting on what the findings are from the internal investigation, is also to look to see how did they evaluate that against what the written policies are. What the written policies are, and or if there aren't any written policy or practices, and if it's completely subjective or up to the officer's discretion, that might be an opportunity again for us here in this body to make recommendations for, you know, policy ordinance changes and or for the Police Oversight Commission. And so I don't know if we can ask to those things about what the policies are for responding to an auto accident, determining who was at fault, and, you know, writing a ticket. And then if the complainant, allegations is based off, you know, he felt like he was discriminated against from public services or protection from the law, if that falls under our ordinance as the human right violation, I moved to vote on that, but I don't know what clause particularly does his complaint fall under based off race, or is it just race alone?
I think you kind of really answered that. I mean, the identification is race based on the color of his skin. He feels like he was mistreated or treated differently, or not treated in a way that maybe the next person that was there as well. And I think from what the discussion is that we're moving forward to being able to have motion on the floor to go further with this. And I think Commissioner Honey wanted to chime in here real quick as well.
Well, I don't know if Crystal was still waiting on a specific answer from Shelly or not, but I just wanted to say, I guess my opinion is that we're voting tonight on whether we think there's enough evidence to want to know more. And I absolutely do believe that. And I will show that with my vote when we do vote. But I want to come to something that you said, Crystal, which I'm really intrigued by, and I completely agree. I don't think this is what we're doing tonight, but it really speaks to the recommendations that we're going to discuss next from the Police Oversight Study Commission about delineating between, is this an officer complaint? Is this a policy complaint? And this is a perfect example of that. So I do hear what you're saying with that. And hopefully as we move forward with our police oversight, this will be in the future, this will be a little bit more clear and be delineated better because there'll be these different options for what sort of complaint you're making. And I think this is just another example of the need for that. That was something, and I know this is next on our agenda, but that was something I really liked about these new recommendations, was that it gets at this whole idea of, if we just focus on the individual, we're not really getting at the meat of the policies are wrong, the procedures are wrong, the philosophies are wrong. So I just think I'm trying to echo, I'm trying to make sure I'm capturing what you were trying to say, Crystal, about that. And I think that's super insightful. I don't think we're in a position to make any sort of determination on that tonight, but I do think it's worth bringing up and, you know, insightful. And I am excited about moving forward in the future to be able to handle this in a better way.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Commissioner Honey. So is there a motion on the floor in regards to item 5.1 about going forward or not?
Liz is getting ready to spout something out. She's always our good wordsmith.
I'm trying to figure out what is it. I moved to hear the complaint. Is that, Shelley, what is the?
Well, I second it.
It says here.
Yeah.
Okay, so motion by Vice Chair Miller and then seconded by Commissioner Davis Dunn. Is there any more discussion on hearing more for item 5.1 HRC complaint?
So just so I'm clear and so that everyone's clear here, our next step on this then would be to hear the results of the police department internal investigation on this.
Correct.
Excellent.
Is there any more discussion before we make a vote? Yes, Commissioner Catherine. Just a quick second, Commissioner Davis Dunn. Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead.
It's just something about what Shelley just said. So just timeline wise, the investigation from the chief would result, whatever the result is, what happens then?
It'll be shared with us.
And then we make a determination, like what happens after that?
There really isn't much determination ability in the ordinance. So this is, yes. So this is really confirming to the complainant that this body believes that there is enough information that there may be discrimination based on race.
And that's it. That's the beginning of it. Got it. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. Commissioner Davis Dunn, go ahead before we move on.
So I was going to say, if we can amend the vote or motion to include before we make a decision based off the internal investigation, that it also includes some type of analysis of what the policy is or practices for responding to an auto accident and making that decision as to who's at fault, you know, in that report, because I'm not sure how they are, how they're investigating, if they're just looking at the police conduct or if they're looking at if he violated or if the officer violated any policies. We don't know what the internal investigation process is, but if we ask that the investigation include some type of analysis or synopsis of, again, what the policy, the practices and expectations of officers when responding to auto accidents, and what is the discretion or policy around writing tickets.
I think those are two different things, right? The complaint itself is the motion on the floor, and the policy review is a separate issue that perhaps the Police Oversight Commission will be doing. It's a separate conversation.
But he just said he felt discriminated against, but his discrimination, the act of discrimination was that he felt like he was unjustly written a ticket, right? Isn't that the claim?
So we have to go through the investigation process before we can say, based on this, we need to have a policy review. Like that feels like that is a possible step later down in the road once we hear about the investigation and things from that. Because right now, like, in our we're still at the very beginning part of that, of might there be something to investigate? Yes, let's begin investigating. And then theoretically, whatever that investigation tells us, lets you know, okay, then what are the things that need to be reviewed here? Why is this happening? What is the bigger, how does this connect to a bigger picture in policing in East Lansing? But we're not, that's like, yeah.
Right. Is there any more discussion?
I appreciate that. No, I would just appreciate that clarification. I'm sorry. Thank you for that.
No, thank you for following. Yes, Commissioner Kennan, go ahead.
Just a quick question. It sounded like we're talking about the same thing, but I think they're different. I heard Shelley say that Steve Gonzalez told her that once she interviewed the complainant that he felt obliged to go forward with the investigation. When Crystal was talking about it, that saying that then if they do the investigation, they have to write a ticket. Ticket and investigation, in my mind, mean two different things. Am I missing something, or are they different?
No, I think we determined that we were talking about two different things, if I understand your inquiry, Commissioner Cannon. Yeah. So yes, those are two different things. And that second thing that we're talking about is down the road as far as the process. So we're just really having a discussion in regards to waiting to hear more on the investigation and more information with you.
I support that direction. Thank you.
All right. Is there any more discussion on the motion on the floor? And I'm sorry, just because we had a lot of discussion, I just want to make sure, Vice Chair Miller, that could you please restate your motion so we make sure we know what we're exactly voting on?
I move to hear the complaints.
That was seconded by who earlier?
Crystal Davis Dunn.
Okay. All right. Is there, so with assuming there's no more discussion, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed to the motion on the floor? All right, seeing none, so moved. We will go ahead and move on with the next phase of this. And it's recognized through our vote. Yes, Commissioner Sartor, go ahead.
Just a quick question. We have to go through the motion of hearing, entertaining his complaint and everything. But correct me if I'm wrong. Is the person still going to be at a loss in terms of getting his car fixed, for example, because he was on work with his personal insurance? Is that something that he's never going to be able to recoup?
That's correct.
And I know that they're in our awesome staff liaisons working with him. We're looking into like, what are the resources, community resources to help with some of those things that, you know, have nothing to do with the investigation and all about helping someone who had a really awful situation happen. So.
All right. Thank you for working on that. Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone that was involved in that discussion. And appreciate that. We'll go ahead and move on to item 6.1, Study Committee on Independent Police Oversight Commission recommendations. And just to kind of give a point of reference here, I know I have Commissioner Tyler here and also Councilmember Bacon, who can also speak to this item on the agenda in regards to where we're at, as opposed to just me. But we are at a point in time now that the recommendations that you have before you are what we sent to city attorney's office, and they're going to take a look at everything we have in there and let us know what our parameters are or what we may be rethinking or even change when it comes to it being something that the city is able to enforce through this recommendation that we're putting forth to go up to council. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And the reason why you're seeing it before we get the version back from the city attorney's office, my vice chair from the study commission, wanted to really make sure that you had an opportunity to see this. And if we had waited, then everything will be out of our hands by that time. And so we thought that it's best practice for you to have that now, because I know Commissioner Honey had inquired and wanted to see something in regards to where we're at and what we were doing with that and where we're at with our recommendations. So that being said, did everyone get a chance to review it and have an understanding of what you had before you? I know I sent it out, or excuse me, Shelley sent it out to you last week. So I want to open the floor up to anyone, even Councilmember Bacon or even Commissioner Tyler, if you want to weigh in more on where we're at in recommendations, you're more than welcome to, but I'll open the floor up to any commissioners who want to speak to item 6.1. Yes, Commissioner Honey, please go ahead.
I know I've got a lot to say tonight, but I just was, I know that I had read the version before the public meeting, and I'm glad that I reread what was actually submitted. I think it shows evidence of a lot of dedicated time and energy and work, and was extremely, was very comprehensive, and spelled things out really well. I liked the notes. I liked how you took the extra time to explain where things came from and linked articles from other jurisdictions and all of that. And I really, really do appreciate all the time and energy that went into this. And I just want to thank you all on the commission for your hard work on this. It's really exciting to see this coming out. And when I think back on the process, we were so gung-ho about just wanting to have a police oversight commission. We were ready to just jump right in. That was 2 years ago. And in some ways it's been frustrating. It's felt frustrating that it has taken much longer than we thought. But judging by all the work that the study commission had to do just to put together the proposal for our police commission, I think we made the right choice in stepping back and slowing the process down. And I just hope that, we can just really move forward with expedience now that this is something that's been so much time and energy has been put into. And I just appreciate all the time and hard work, and I appreciate the success.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey, for the kind words. Commissioner Tyler, please go ahead.
Yeah, so Chuck, I don't know if we had a human relations meeting in between the time in which we received community input. But I do appreciate the process that we went about getting community input, and hope that the community feels that the recommendation basis supports their recommendations or their perspectives from the community input meeting.
Absolutely. Thank you, Commissioner Tyler. I just like this group of people, I'm honored to be able to be on that commission and work with a lot of people that are doing so much work. It's been, I think, 8 months of us just grinding it out. And we really, really have a great group of people who really care about this issue, done their homework, had the expertise and time to put forth these recommendations. And I'm really, really proud to be a part of that. And, I'm really excited to get this information back from the city attorney to see kind of where we're at with that, so we can move to the next phase in our discussion in our next meeting. You're more than welcome if, for example, you get a chance to maybe look at some things more as we have our next meeting next week, I believe, to call in and participate and let us know if there's anything there that you want us to kind of rethink or add to, because we're only going to be meeting for, I think, 2 more times after next week. So we have one more meeting next week, and then we'll have one following 2 weeks after that. So the last meeting right now, I think next week, I can safe to say that that'll be your last really strong opportunity to really have some things in there that we can look at further based off of that. Yes, the community input, Commissioner Tyler, and the way that all went down, and to what you were saying, Commissioner Honey, we took everyone's input professionally, community-wise, even from here, all the work that was begun on this commission and through the community members that were working on this when they brought it to the commission of HRC, to bring it home to where we're at right now. It's been a very tough, challenging, and rewarding journey to be able to have this. And I think, you know, a lot of us that have been doing this work can be very, very proud of being a part of this work. And I'm looking forward to bring this thing home to home plate to council and having them get this thing up and running as soon as possible. So with that being said, I will leave final comments to anyone else that wanted to make any comments on section 6.1. Yes, Vice Chair Miller.
I just want to heap more gratitude on the study group and affirmation. And I truly hope that you all who are serving on that will pass that feedback on from the HRC, just because the amount of work and the wisdom that was in the room. And I've been following, you know, this whole time, and I've just been so impressed from where we started to where we got. It's a totally different thing, and it took a lot of commitment. So thank you all for that work.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. All right. So yeah, we'll go ahead and move on. If there's nothing there in that document that you want to discuss specifically in regards to our agenda item, and I'm not seeing that be indicated. So we'll go ahead and move on to item 6.2, future events subcommittee updates. Do we have any subcommittee work going on right now? In an update with that? I don't think we do we? Is there some subcommittee work happening right now that I don't know about that I should? All right, so I don't think so. We'll go ahead and move on to.
Hey, Chuck, can I say something? Chuck,
oh, I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Commissioner Honey.
I just wanted to say to Pat that if you're interested in connecting with me in the next couple of weeks to start talking about coffee and conversation, I'd love to start that conversation with you and get some things going, and then we can report out to everybody else. So do you have time to do that?
Of course, I'm a retired state worker.
I'm jealous. All right, I'm going to reach out to you in the next week then, Pat, because I really am excited. I can tell you're excited about it. I love your ideas, and I'm ready to get, you know, moving forward on it. So I will make a commitment. I'm saying it out loud now in front of everybody, so I'll be held to it. I was just send you a personal message. So I thought, no, let me fully commit myself. So you're all hearing me say I will reach out, and by the next meeting, Pat and I will, and anybody else that wants to work on that with us, will have something to report. Okay.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey and Commissioner Cannon. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to item number 7, commissioner concerns or comments. Is there anyone that has anything to add to the discussion tonight with comments or concerns? Seeing none. Okay, so I just want to get a kind of idea. We met last month and everything like that about kind of really going forward. I just want to kind of have in the back of my head, because I know we've talked about the coffee and conversations and some of the different topics that we really want to focus on. I really think in our next meeting, with more that we know about our public health status, it seems like we kind of had a backward step here with some of the things that we have going on with our case numbers with COVID. But just be mindful of really, in the back of your head, thinking about how you would want those things to lay out and when, as the time goes and the weeks passes up into our next meeting. So that's an appropriate conversation, because we can really start thinking about these things in a way that we can apply them, but we can also maybe be thinking about things and doing them in an alternative format that we have available to us that does not allow us to be able to get started in the physical form. So I just wanted to say that in my comments. And that's all I had. If anyone else doesn't have anything, I'll go ahead and move on. Yes, Commissioner Tyler, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I saw your hand flash. I apologize. All right, I'll go ahead and move on to item number 8, adjournment. Is there a motion on the floor to adjourn for this evening?
So moved.
Whoa. All right, so moved by Commissioner Tyler, seconded by Vice Chair Miller. Thank you everyone tonight for your input and dialogue. I feel really good. It's good to see you. It seems like we don't see each other but once a month now, really. But thank you so much. All those in favor of adjournment, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.